The year is 1943. High above the Atlantic, a new breed of sea power takes wing. These are not merely machines. They are the heavy cavalry of a new age, venturing toward a rendezvous that will shift the tides of the Pacific. We are looking at the Grumman F6F Hellcat, a fighter forged specifically to answer the Japanese Zero. Unlike its predecessors, it carries the massive Pratt Whitney Double Wasp engine, 2,000 horsepower, encased in armor plating, designed not just to fly, but to take punishment and return home. Observe the flight deck, a floating airstrip pitching in the open sea. The coordination required here is a mechanical ballet. The Avengers and Helldivers you see are heavy with destruction, yet they leap from these short decks with a precision that defies gravity. What few realize is the engineering marvel of the hydraulic catapults and the folding wing mechanisms, innovations that allowed us to pack nearly 100 aircraft onto a single hull. This density of firepower was the surprise weapon the enemy never calculated. Now we ride with the pilot. These images, captured by the very gun cameras synced to the firing mechanism, offer a terrifyingly clear view of aerial warfare. Notice the tracers. Our pilots are trained to hold fire until the bullets converge at exactly 300 yards. This is the zone of lethality. Unlike the enemy, who often relies on maneuverability and light frames, our doctrine relies on heavy armor and the devastating, concentrated punch of 6 50-caliber machine guns tearing through airframes. The return trip is often the most perilous. The landing signal officer, the LSO, stands exposed on the stern, guiding these 5-ton birds onto a moving deck with nothing but colored paddles and nerve. It takes a unique breed of aviator to trust his life to a hook and a wire. The arresting gear engines below deck must absorb the kinetic energy of a crashing plane in mere seconds. It is a violent, controlled collision that happens dozens of times a day, turning the vast ocean into a precise airfield. This is the reality of the task force. We do not spray lead indiscriminately. We fire in bursts to conserve barrels and ammunition. As we push toward Kwajalein and beyond, the skies are clearing. Air superiority is not just about the pilot's skill, but about the rugged, relentless durability of American engineering.
Here is the famous Berlin Sleeper on its way to raid Frosinone Aerodrome near Rome. The 103 bombing missions of this remarkable fortress include targets in France, Holland, Belgium, Tunisia, Italian Libya, Pantelleria, Sardinia, Sicily, and Italy. The Sleeper is now back in the States. Moving day for the 321st Bombardment Group brought thunderstorms, heavy showers, and mud. Planes, tractors, and men were bogged down to a snail's pace by the weather conditions. But in the 48 hours allotted for the job, the camp was torn down, equipment and supplies loaded and packed, and the movement completed. They used C-47 cargo planes and their own B-25s. 24 hours after they landed in Italy, the group flew their first mission. Thunderbolt crews at a fighter station of the 8th Air Force in Great Britain are detailed to escort flying fortresses on a bombing mission over Nazi Europe. While the pilots are briefed, ground crews have prepared the P-47s, loading machine gun ammunition, testing the guns, filling the auxiliary tanks for long range. These squadrons are leaving for the front, the great air front over Western Europe. Heading east, they rendezvous at the appointed time and place with the heavy bombers. And here are the heavies, giant fortresses that drop their tons of high explosives on pinpoint targets. As an attack by German Messerschmitts and Focke-Wulfs is about to develop, the Thunderbolts peel off to intercept, to protect their bombers. They have done their job well, turned back the Hun, while the bombers released their destructive cargoes. In the process, many enemy fighters were down. As soon as the pilot lands, his crew chief rushes up to hear the score. But in addition to the pilot's account, there's a film record of action when the guns were fired. This camera, shooting alongside the fighters' guns, can give us precise evidence of what happened in the sky battle we've just seen. This roll of film will be rushed to the developer, and here's the story it tells. A good day's hunting by a Thunderbolt. On the River Seine, halfway between Le Havre and Paris, is today's target, Le Trait. Objectives are power plants, boiler houses, repair shops, and shipyards. 36 B-26s took off, 33 attacked, protected by 11 squads of Spitfires. Workshops were hit with 40 tons of bombs. All vessels docked here were set afire as 4 other fighter squads swept the area. This was an extremely successful bombing mission, since there were no losses or casualties for our side. On a mission over Saint-Nazaire, a fortress is attacked as she completes her bombing run. Hit fatally and engine smoking, the ship plummets down and crashes into the sea, a flaming comet. On a frosty English morning, an 8th Air Force crew trots to its plane, its engines turning over. The famous Memphis Belle. They move down the line in their regular order. A mighty armada of flying fortresses is taking off in a major daylight raid against northern Germany. They're going to strike at the heart of the enemy, Wilhelmshaven, a big naval base just west of the Danish peninsula. As they pass over the Frisian Islands, the windows are winking in the sun. Crossing over the continent, they approach the target. The Germans light hundreds of smoke pots to hide the harbor installations, but they're too late. This heavy flak indicates how important the target is. Bombs away! Now interceptors charge in. A battle royal takes place over the harbor. An ME-109 flashes by. The air is full of flak and Focke-Wulfs and flying forts and darting Messerschmitts. Hits have been scored on ships, docks, and warehouses. The destruction is terrific. Continual German interception at the height of the bombing, trying every kind of attack. A stricken American Eagle drops out of formation, fading fast. But as the fortresses leave the smoking target behind, they resume formation, filling in gaps for the planes that won't make the round trip. Feathering its prop, this fortress limps back. At long last, home base. The mission has been completely successful, but we paid the price in men and materiel, and both must be replaced from home. This bombardier got a piece of shrapnel when the nose of the fortress was blown away in exchange for the several tons of bombs left in Wilhelmshaven.
Look to the skies, America. There she is, the heavy-hitting hammer of the 8th Air Force, the consolidated B-24 Liberator. While the fortress holds the line, the Liberator expands the front. You are looking at a marvel of modern engineering that has turned the tide of battle from the Channel coast to the heart of the Reich. Note the high-mounted wing, the famous Davis design. It's thin, it's long, and it slices through the air with an efficiency that allows this bird to carry a heavier payload faster and farther than any other heavy bomber in our arsenal. See those bomb bay doors? They don't swing open like barn doors, dragging in the wind. They roll up into the fuselage like a garage shutter, keeping our speed high right up to the moment of delivery. And delivery is what this ship is all about. Thanks to the wizards at Willow Run, American industry is pumping out one of these four-engine giants every single hour. It is the sheer weight of numbers, combined with advanced tricycle landing gear and a 10-man crew of the finest boys from back home, that is dismantling the enemy war machine brick by brick. This is the Liberator, the long arm of liberty reaching across the Atlantic.
May 1945. The guns have fallen silent across Europe. The 1,000-year Reich has crumbled in 12 fierce years of war. Now, as the dust settles over the continent, we can walk through the ruins of what was once the most feared air force on Earth, the Luftwaffe. These airfields, once beehives of activity launching blitzes against London and convoys to Russia, are now silent graveyards of twisted aluminum and broken ambitions. Walking among the skeletons of these warbirds, we see the physical toll of total defeat. Here lies the Heinkel 111, the old workhorse that once darkened the skies over Britain, now stripped of its engines by curious GIs. There, the shattered remains of the heavy Heinkel 177 Greif, a bomber plagued by engine fires, a design so complex it often defeated itself before an Allied fighter ever fired a shot. But amidst the conventional wreckage, we find the desperate, futuristic gambles of a dying regime. Look closely at the small, tailless rocket-powered plane resting on its dolly wheels, the Messerschmitt Comet. An interceptor that drank volatile fuels so dangerous they could dissolve a pilot alive. It was a weapon of pure desperation, capable of climbing vertically to the bomber streams, but possessed of an endurance measured in mere minutes. It sits now, impotent and captured, a symbol of too little, too late. We see the backbone of the fighter force, the Focke-Wulf 190s and the Messerschmitt 109s, aircraft that fought from the sands of North Africa to the snows of Stalingrad. Now, they are souvenirs. American pilots, men who perhaps fought these very machines in the air only weeks ago, now climb over them, inspecting the cockpits, turning the propellers, marveling at the engineering of a foe they have finally bested, while servicing their victorious P-51 Mustangs. Even the mighty twin-engine night fighters, the Ju-88s and Heinkel 219, equipped with their radar antlers, lie camouflaged and abandoned in the tree lines. They were hunted to extinction, grounded not just by our fighters, but by a lack of fuel, a lack of pilots, and the relentless pounding of our daylight raids. This footage is the epitaph of the German Air Force and their Nazi regime. It is a scene of absolute destruction, where the pride of a nation has been reduced to scrap metal scattered across the fields of Europe. The war is over, and the sky belongs to the victors. The year is 1944. The fortress of Europe is besieged. From the west, the white cliffs of Dover send forth a daily thunder of engines. From the south, the airfields of Italy launch their own armadas. But the heart of the enemy Reich lies deep, hidden behind hundreds of miles of flak towers and fighter squadrons. To strike the vitals of the German war machine in the east, the oil refineries of Poland, the marshalling yards of Hungary, requires a flight of extraordinary peril. Normally, a bomber drops its load and turns back, fighting its way home through the same gauntlet of steel it just survived. But the United States Army Air Forces have conceived a new geometry of war. A plan so audacious, it requires the cooperation of superpowers separated by ideology, but united in battle. The code name is Operation Titanic. The weapon of choice is the Boeing B-17 Flying Fortress, a four-engine giant that has become the symbol of American resolve. Flying alongside them are the sleek Silver Guardians, the P-51 Mustangs. Together, they are embarking on a mission with no return ticket to England. The strategy is shuttle bombing. Instead of turning back, these formations push forward. They fly over the burning targets, over the crumbling lines of the Eastern Front, and into the mysterious vastness of the Soviet Union. It is a triangular superhighway in the sky. England to Russia, Russia to Italy, Italy back to England. To make this possible, a logistical miracle was performed in secret. Thousands of tons of steel matting, high-octane gasoline, and American mechanics were transported over dangerous Arctic convoys to the plains of Ukraine. There, amidst the ruins of war, American air bases rose from the mud. This operation changes the calculus of the entire war. With bases in Russia, there is no place left in Europe for the Luftwaffe to hide. We can strike the enemy from behind, land, rearm, and strike him again on the return trip. But beyond the strategic brilliance, there is a human story here. When those B-17 touched down on Soviet soil, it is the first time many of these young Americans have met their Eastern allies. It is a meeting of East and West, sharing soup and cigarettes on the wing of a bomber, united by a single driving purpose: the unconditional defeat of the Axis powers. This is the story of that brief historic handshake. This is Operation Titanic. The year is 1944. The fortress of Europe sits behind the wall of steel and flak. For years, the heavy bombers of the 8th Air Force have hammered at the roof of this fortress, but they have paid a terrible price. The German Luftwaffe, flying from interior lines, has taken a heavy toll on our formations. But the tide is turning. A new strategy has emerged, written in the vapor trails high above the continent. It is a strategy of total air supremacy. To achieve this, American industry has delivered a triad of avenging angels. The rugged P-47 Thunderbolt, a machine so tough it can fly through a brick wall and come home. The twin-engine P-38 Lightning, the fork-tailed devil that ranges far and wide. And the P-51 Mustang, the thoroughbred that can escort our big friends all the way to Berlin and back. But having the planes is only half the battle. The logistics of this air war are staggering. Consider the fuel. A bomber flies straight and true, conserving its energy. A fighter must weave, climb, dive, and orbit. It burns fuel at a ferocious rate. To protect a bomber stream of perhaps 100 aircraft deep into Germany, we cannot simply send 100 fighters. We must send waves. As one group reaches its fuel limit and turns for home, another must arrive to take its place. It requires a ratio of 10 fighters for every one bomber to maintain a constant shield. It is a ballet of timing and gasoline, orchestrated over hundreds of miles of hostile sky. The orders have changed, too. Under the command of General Jimmy Doolittle, our pilots are no longer leashed to the bomber formations. The order is now pursue and destroy. When the Luftwaffe rises to fight, our boys do not wait. They hunt. They seek out the enemy in the air, and if he refuses to fly, they seek him out on the ground. You are about to witness the results of this relentless pressure. The camera guns in the wings of our fighters record the destruction of an air force. We see the strafing of airfields, where the enemy is destroyed before he can even turn a propeller. We see the destruction of the railways, the arteries that feed the German war machine. A single fighter diving at 400 miles an hour becomes a precision instrument of havoc, tearing up locomotives and ammunition trains with 50 caliber rounds. This is a war of attrition. The enemy pilot flies until he dies. He has no rotation, no rest. Our men fly their tour, pass on their knowledge to the next class, and return to the fray fresh and determined. The result is inevitable. This is an image that has already been seared into the national consciousness. 6 men struggling against the wind atop a volcanic cone, raising the stars and stripes. It is a symbol of victory, yes, but more importantly, it is a testament to the uncommon valor of the men fighting and dying on the black sands below. From the air, Iwo Jima looks like a pork chop cut from stone. It is 8 square miles of volcanic ash and sulfur vents, a desolate rock sitting 700 miles south of Tokyo. It is ugly, it smells of rotten eggs, and it has no fresh water. Yet, for the United States Army Air Forces, this ugly rock is the most valuable piece of real estate in the Pacific. It is the only thing standing between our B-29 superfortresses and a safe return home. The logic of war is cold. To save the lives of thousands of bomber crews flying the long haul from the Marianas to Japan, the Marines must take this island. The Japanese know this. Lieutenant General Kuribayashi has turned Iwo Jima into a fortress not built on the island, but in it. There are no trenches here. There are 11 miles of tunnels, caves, and concrete pillboxes connecting 1,500 underground rooms. When the landing craft dropped their ramps on February 19th, the beaches were deceptively quiet. It was a trap. As the Marines struggled up the terraces of soft, shifting ash that bogged down tanks and exhausted men, the enemy opened fire from hidden positions. It was a massacre on the waterline. This is not a battle of maneuver. It is a slow, grinding frontal assault against an invisible enemy who has sworn to kill 10 Americans for every one of his own lives lost. The naval bombardment, the heaviest in history, could not crack the subterranean defenses. It falls to the infantryman with his rifle, his flamethrower, and his demolition charges to burn and blast the enemy out, cave by cave, yard by bloody yard. Overhead, carrier-based aircraft, Hellcats and Corsairs, fly dangerously low, dropping napalm and rockets to support the advance. They are clearing the path for the prize, the airfields. Even while the fighting rages, the first crippled B-29s are already making emergency landings, their crews looking out at the carnage that bought their safety. The cost is staggering. Nearly 7,000 Americans will lay down their lives here. 20,000 Japanese defenders will fight to the death. But as the flag flies over Suribachi and the airfields teem with American planes, the message is clear. The front door to the Japanese homeland has been kicked open. The vast Pacific, a theater of war measuring 64 million square miles. Here, the rising sun is setting. But in its final dying light, it casts a terrifying shadow. The Empire of Japan, pushed back to its very doorstep, has abandoned the traditional rules of warfare. They have resurrected a ghost from their history, the Kamikaze, the divine wind. Centuries ago, a typhoon destroyed a Mongol invasion fleet and saved Japan. Today, they hope to recreate that miracle, not with wind and rain, but with flesh and blood. Intelligence reports reveal a chilling reality about these special attack corps. These are not the samurai of old. They are mere boys, some as young as 17, rushed through flight schools with barely 40 hours of time in the cockpit. They are taught just enough to take off and steer, but never how to land. Their graduation ceremony is a funeral service. Their weapons are often the scrapings of the barrel, obsolete fighters and dive bombers laden with explosives and stripped of armor. But the enemy is also innovating in their desperation. We have seen a new nightmare in the sky, the Ohka. The Americans call it the Baka bomb, the Fool. It is a rocket-powered glider, a manned missile dropped from a bomber, screaming toward our ships at 500 miles an hour, too fast for a human gunner to track. At Okinawa, the typhoon of steel, the cost is horrific. The wooden flight decks of our carriers, unlike the armored decks of our British allies, are vulnerable. A single fanatic can turn a majestic ship into a blazing inferno, crippling our power projection. To stop this suicidal swarm, the Navy relies on the ace makers, the Grumman Hellcat and the Vought Corsair. These machines are rugged, heavily armed, and flown by men who have mastered the air. But even they cannot catch every leaker. When a plane breaks through the combat air patrol, it falls to the gunners on the decks. But bullets often pass right through these fragile suicide planes without detonating the explosives. We needed a weapon that doesn't just hit. We needed a weapon that thinks. And American science has delivered. It is called the VT Proximity Fuse. A miracle of miniaturization, it puts a tiny radio radar inside a 5-inch anti-aircraft shell. It does not need to hit the target. It senses the enemy plane and detonates the shell at the precise moment to shred the attacker with a cloud of high-velocity steel. This is the story of how American ingenuity met the ultimate fanaticism and won. The Pacific is a chessboard of coral and jungle, but the king on this board sits menacingly on the tip of New Britain, Rabaul. To the Japanese imperial forces, this is more than a harbor. It is the Gibraltar of the South. Simpson Harbor is choked with supply ships, the airfields are teeming with Zero fighters, and 100,000 troops are dug into the volcanic soil, waiting for an invasion that would cost the Allies dearly in blood. But General Kenny and the 5th Air Force have drafted a different plan. We are not going to storm the beaches of Rabaul. We are going to turn the sky into a ceiling of steel and starve them out. To crack a nut this hard, the standard rule book of high-altitude precision bombing has been thrown out the window. We are witnessing the birth of the Strafer. These are not your standard glass-nosed bombardier ships. The 5th Air Force mechanics, under the guidance of the legendary Pappy Gunn, have transformed them into heavy gunships. The B-25G model carries a secret weapon in its solid nose, a 75mm M4 cannon. It is a field artillery piece strapped to an airplane. Manually loaded by the navigator, it fires a high-explosive shell capable of sinking a destroyer or blowing a tank apart from 2 miles away. But the cannon is just the opening salvo. The real devastation comes from the parafrags, fragmentation bombs attached to small parachutes. Our boys in the A-20 Havocs and B-25s are flying so low, literally skimming the jungle canopy at treetop level, that if they dropped standard bombs, the blast would take down their own aircraft. The parachutes delay the explosion just enough for the attacker to escape, shredding enemy aircraft parked on the ground. It is a terrifying, intimate form of warfare. Pilots are returning to base with palm fronds stuck in their landing gear and salt spray on their windshields. This campaign is a symphony of destruction. High above, the twin-boom P-38 Lightnings sweep the skies of enemy interceptors, while the heavy B-24 Liberators pound the wharves from altitude. Down on the deck, the modified Mitchells and Havocks are skipping bombs across the water like stones, slamming them directly into the hulls of Japanese transports. We are systematically cutting the arteries of the empire. Watch as the coordinated might of the U.S., Australian, and New Zealand Air Forces converge on a single point in history. The fortress of Rabaul is about to wither on the vine.
Dateline, North Africa. The myth of the Desert Fox is shattered. Allied forces have smashed Rommel's once vaunted Africa Corps, sending the Nazi war machine reeling in defeat. The tide has turned on the desert sands. On the sands of Egypt, the British Eighth Army prepares for what history will record as the 7th Battle of Libya. Planning the action, General Montgomery and Air Vice Marshal Cunningham. For weeks, the British prepared with a thoroughness bred of past experience. For weeks, vast supplies and equipment have poured in from England and America. And as Britain's Eighth Army grows, is reinforced, not as supply ship reaches Rommel, so completely are Allied submarines and planes dominating the Mediterranean. Then, in the black hours before dawn, Montgomery gave the order to advance. Guns were first to blaze into action.
Daybreak, and squadrons of Allied fighter planes take to the skies. The most powerful air fleet ever unleashed in the Middle East. Montgomery's armored might begins to roll. The British offensive is on in force. From the sky, American and RAF bombers blast the enemy across a 40-mile front, unleashing tons of high explosive on Rommel's surprised and reeling Africa Corps. Relentlessly, United States bombers press home the attack, concentrating on troop transports and supply lines. Yankee bombardiers and Britons repaying the Nazis for the strafing of helpless civilians who once fled along the choked and bleeding roads of Belgium and France. In the desert, new tank destroyers, far outranging the Nazi guns, smash Rommel's vaunted ring of steel. The infantry breaks through. Scots of the reformed 51st Highlanders, shattered in Europe, now avenging their comrades. Tanks, guns, men, Canadians, British, Anzacs, slashing the Nazi forces to ribbons. So complete is Allied air superiority that the Germans offer little resistance. Sailing above and through Nazi anti-aircraft fire, the bombers shoot down Messerschmitts that challenge their advance. With devastating accuracy, bombs made in the USA spread havoc and destruction, take terrific toll of the shattered Nazi war machine. Outflanked, outgunned, outmaneuvered. The roundup of prisoners, dazed, shell-shocked Nazis, remnants of the once proud Africa Corps, whole divisions of Italians, abandoned by their German masters, gave up, begged to be captured.
By 1943, the skies over the Third Reich had become a relentless battlefield. Allied bomber formations flew deeper into German territory, and for the Luftwaffe, the challenge was no longer just superiority, it was survival. A new interceptor was needed, a weapon that could close the distance to the bombers at incredible speed, strike with overwhelming firepower, and escape before the swarms of escort fighters could react. From the drawing boards of the Dornier Company came an answer so radical that it seemed to defy aviation wisdom. The design, codenamed 335 and nicknamed the File, or Arrow, was built around a revolutionary idea: a tandem push-pull engine configuration. One powerful engine was mounted in the nose, pulling, while a second identical engine was buried in the rear fuselage, pushing. It wasn't just an engineering curiosity, it was a brilliant solution to the problem of drag. By placing both massive engines in the fuselage, Claudius Dornier created an airframe with the power of a twin-engine fighter, but the streamlined profile of a single-engine one. The result was staggering. The Dornier DO-335 was, quite simply, the fastest piston-engined aircraft of the Second World War, capable of outrunning any Allied fighter, including the P-51 Mustang. It was a heavy fighter that flew with the speed of a light one, bristling with cannons. But this technological marvel was incredibly complex. It required one of the very first operational ejection seats, a necessity born from the deadly risk of bailing out into a spinning rear propeller. Like so many of Germany's late-war Wunderwaffen, the DO-335 was a case of too little, too late. Plagued by delays and the chaos of a collapsing Reich, the Arrow never reached mass production. It remains one of the most fascinating what-ifs of the air war, a glimpse into a future that arrived just as history was closing its doors. Yet the story of the Arrow did not end in 1945. Its final secret chapter was written by its former enemies. Allied forces, desperate to understand its radical design, captured the surviving prototypes. Shipped to America and Britain and flown by astonished test pilots, the File's advanced concepts were studied intensely, its engineering DNA influencing the next generation of high-performance aircraft that would define the dawn of the Cold War.
In the vast, dark expanse of the Pacific War, a different kind of hunter prowled the night skies. They were not sleek fighters, but lumbering long-range flying boats with a deadly purpose. We now uncover the incredible history of the PBY Catalina patrol bombers in The Story of the Black Cats. Now restored and in full color, this film reveals the crucial, often overlooked role of these versatile aircraft. Painted black for camouflage, the Black Cats flew daring, low-level missions under the cover of darkness. They became the scourge of Japanese shipping, disrupting vital supply lines with torpedoes and bombs. A fascinating part of their story is their dual role. By day, these same aircraft transformed into angels of mercy. Known as Dumbos, they flew perilous air-sea rescue missions, saving countless downed airmen from the sea. This is the story of the crews who mastered the slow but resilient PBY, turning it into a legendary weapon and a symbol of hope in the lonely Pacific.
The attacker was an unidentified American plane hitting at night. They bombed the destroyers, light cruisers, heavy cruisers. What is this super plane? Anything familiar? That torso with a middle-aged sag? Her speed less than some cars can do. Maneuverable? Some days all right. On others she brings around like a 10-ton truck. She dives under protest. Wings can't handle half the pressure dive bombers take. Got her? Right. The old cat. Navy Catalina patrol boat. PBY in a black nightgown for night camouflage. A black cat.
She hides by day in one of the secret U.S. Navy cat bases, which the enemy would love to know about. It's 8 a.m. Base personnel watching for a black cat overdue, last heard from at midnight, attacking a Japanese merchant ship. But they don't watch long. Here comes the cat, and it's a zoom, a signal that she did it again. One more enemy ship on the bottom.
The Baka bomb was recovered by American forces on Okinawa. The bomb is a low-wing monoplane with a slim round fuselage and prominent nose. The stubby wing has squared tips with moderate dihedral. The wing is of single-piece construction, recessed and bolted to a correspondingly recessed inlet at the front end of the fuselage. Rudders and elevators employ balance weights. The bubble-type canopy is made of plexiglass. The pilot is not sealed in. The pilot sights his objective by means of a simple ring and bead sight. Armor plate protects the pilot from the rear and below. The instrument panel contains only essential instruments. The control surfaces are operated by a standard joystick mounting a switch for firing rockets. The Baka suicide bomb is suspended from the parent plane by a single bomb-type lug which is placed close behind the center of gravity. Maximum horizontal range when released at 27,000 feet is 55 miles. The bomb is powered by 3 rockets which may be fired simultaneously or separately. By the use of these rockets, speed is increased to 535 miles per hour. Glide speed is 229 miles per hour. The simple construction of the Baka suicide bomb indicates that it may be mass-produced. The limiting factor seems to be the number of parent aircraft available for launching.
The damage done was terrific, both because of the low altitude from which the bombs were dropped and because of the highly inflammable nature of Japanese structures. The targets selected were all of a military nature.
The absolute minimum of time was taken. There couldn't have been less time than had the mission. We had expected to have a beacon at the field in China where we were to land. That beacon never got there. The airplane bringing it in crashed, all aboard were killed, and the beacon never got there. So when we plaintively began to call for homing instructions, there was no answer to our call. That left only 2 possibilities, one to bail out and the other to find a place to land in the darkness and in very bad weather. Most of us bailed out. There was one great piece of good fortune. We were intercepted the morning of the day that we bombed Japan. We therefore lost the element of surprise, which was almost essential to our survival. On the other hand, the Japanese did not know that we had medium-range bombers. They thought only of normal aircraft, carrier aircraft, and consequently didn't expect us until the next day. So by the grace of an all-provident deity, we achieved complete surprise. Each pilot and crew had a specific target. They were all briefed not to bomb under any considerations the Imperial Palace, to avoid the Imperial Palace at all costs. The reason for that was twofold. First, it was not a military target. It was to the Japanese a shrine. And second, for the very practical purpose that a short time before, the Germans had inadvertently bombed Buckingham Palace. That had the effect of pulling the British together at a time when they were getting very distressed. We felt that a bombing of the Imperial Palace would be most damaging to the war effort because it would steel the Japanese whereas the avoidance of it and the taking of strictly military targets was the better course. The part that is best known, and the part that was done, I guess, most quickly and eventually relatively successfully, was the Tokyo raid.
During the Second World War, the skies were a brutal testing ground. From the desperate defense of Britain's shores to the relentless strategic campaigns that struck at the enemy's heartland, British aviation became a linchpin of the Allied war machine, perfecting piston engine technology under the relentless pressure of total war. In the summer of 1940, the war was a battle for survival. The Royal Air Force, outnumbered but unbowed, met the challenge with a new generation of single-seat fighters. These were the 8-gun interceptors, the rugged workhorses and the graceful thoroughbreds that held the line against the aerial armada sent to break them. In the hands of a few, these machines saved a nation. While the island was defended, another war was waged in the vast, empty ocean. A war of supply. Here, giant 4-engined flying boats became the guardians of the convoys. They were the flying porcupines, bristling with guns, built to hunt the U-boat and endure grueling patrols far from any land. But to win, Britain had to strike back. A new force of heavy 4-engined night bombers was forged. These were the machines that carried the war to the enemy's industrial heart. Powered by 4 of the finest piston engines ever created, these giants flew for hours in the dark, a small crew of 7 battling flak, fighters, and the elements, to deliver a new kind of industrial-scale destruction. This was the zenith of the piston age, an arsenal of machines honed by 6 years of desperate, continuous combat. But even as victory was celebrated, a new reality dawned. The jet age had arrived, and with it, the atom bomb. The rule book of air power had been torn apart. Sheer survival now depended on radical new thinking. Piston power gave way to the quest for Mach 1 and beyond, demanding giant swept-wing and delta-wing bombers capable of flying at the very edge of the atmosphere. The need for speed became absolute, sparking designs that married rocket boosters to jet engines, pure interceptors built to claw their way to a target in mere minutes. It was a golden age of design, born from necessity.
In 1939, the skies themselves became a new battlefield. The first years of the war were defined by the bomber. German twin-engine aircraft, symbols of the Blitzkrieg, tore through the skies of Poland, France, and the Low Countries. They proved that air power could be a terrifying instrument of shock and terror. As the battle for Britain began, the night skies over London filled with the thrum of enemy engines. A new, indiscriminate warfare brought directly to the civilian. In response, Great Britain forged a sword of its own. It was a strategy born of desperation and resolve, the strategic night offensive. This was a war of endurance, a campaign to take the fight to the enemy's homeland. An entire generation of young men, pilots, navigators, bomb aimers, engineers, and gunners, were trained for this singular, perilous task. They flew in vast 4-engined machines, navigating by the stars and the dim glow of the earth below, facing a gauntlet of flak and skilled night fighters. This set the stage for the greatest air campaign in history. 2 massive air forces, one striking by day, the other by night, in a relentless, round-the-clock assault on the industrial heart of the Reich. Each machine was an engineering marvel, a complex fusion of aluminum, high-octane fuel, and raw courage. They were powered by the most advanced piston engines ever created, defended by turrets, and filled with thousands of gallons of fuel for the long, lonely trip into enemy airspace. This is the story of those machines, and the crews of young men who flew them into history. This is the story of the minds who dared to draw the future. and the pilots who risked everything to fly it.
June 1941. A new front is opened in the Great War. The full might of the German Luftwaffe is unleashed upon Russia. The very spear tip of this aerial assault is this machine, the Heinkel HE-111. Observe its form. This is the backbone of the Reich's bomber force, the Kampfgeschwader. It is a machine born of deception. To the world in the 1930s, this was a harmless civilian transport, a sleek, fast airliner for the German state airline Lufthansa. But this was a clever lie, a disguise to hide a secret violation of the Versailles Treaty. This airliner was designed from the start with a hidden vertical bomb bay. It was a wolf in sheep's clothing, a bomber built in the shadows, waiting for this very day. Its most striking feature is its revolutionary nose. The older models, which served in Spain and Poland, had a conventional stepped cockpit. But this new generation features a fully glazed, asymmetric glass nose. This stepless cockpit gives the pilot and the bombardier an unparalleled panoramic view of the battlefield below. It is a flying observation post and a deadly gun platform in one. Now this secret weapon, proven in the skies over Britain, is turned east. In massive, disciplined formations, the HE-11s drone over the endless Russian steppe. Their mission? To shatter the Soviet airfields, to sever the supply lines, and to pulverize the Red Army's defenses before they can even mobilize. This is not a nimble machine, it is a workhorse. Its crews know its defenses are light against modern fighters. Their survival depends on rugged construction and, above all, tight, mutual defensive fire. This is the sledgehammer of the Blitzkrieg, the machine tasked with breaking the Soviet Union from the air. Day after day, they fly from primitive, dusty airfields, striking at railway junctions and the vast, crude factories of the Soviet war machine. The goal is total annihilation of the enemy's logistics. On the ground, the great panzer armies advance, but it is this machine that is tasked with clearing their path. Look at the crews. Young men flying in a glass bubble, exposed, relying on their gunners and the fellowship of the formation. Their world is one of constant vibration, the unceasing roar of the Jumo engines, and the ever-present threat of flak or a sudden attack from an enemy fighter. But the Russian land is vast, a sea of earth that seems to swallow armies and machines. The Heinkel, with its great range, is pushed to its absolute limits, flying missions deep into the Soviet heartland, often returning on fumes. As the summer advance fades, a new, undefeated enemy appears, the Russian winter. This is a foe that no gunner can fight, a cold so brutal it freezes oil solid and turns metal brittle. The Heinkel, the proud bomber, is now forced into a new, desperate role, a makeshift transport. It becomes a lifeline, a fragile thread to the encircled armies at places like Stalingrad. It is a testament to its tough, reliable design. It is a true workhorse. A machine that has become the enduring symbol of the Luftwaffe's striking power on this, the most brutal front of the war.
From the newly won islands of the Marianas, a new kind of thunder rolls across the Pacific. These are the super fortresses, the B-29s. Watch them, silver giants rising from the runways, bound for the very heart of the enemy. High in the stratosphere, our boys are now delivering a message of fire and steel, directly to Tokyo's war machine. But the long road to Tokyo is also paved on the decks of our great carriers, the floating fortresses of the fleet. From these steel islands rise our naval wings, the champions of the sky, sweeping the enemy from the air. They are the hunters, protecting our fleet, engaging in furious combat high above the blue Pacific, clearing the way for the inevitable advance. Now, in these final desperate days, the enemy has unleashed a fanatical new weapon, the Kamikaze, a desperate suicidal lunge against our fleet. They come in low, they come in fast, with only one target in mind, our ships. But they are met with a wall of American steel. Look at that screen of fire. Our gunners, men from every state back home, stand by their guns. From the heavy 5-inch batteries to the rapid-fire cannons that line every rail. They throw up a curtain of flak so thick It seems no man could possibly fly through it. We are using every tool at our disposal, making every shell count in this terrible, necessary business. Our boys will not falter. They will hold the line. From the high-altitude raids of our super fortresses to the furious battles at sea, every arm of our mighty force is working as one. The enemy is surrounded. His navy is at the bottom of the sea. His air force is shattered. There can be, and will be, only one end to this: total victory. The road is hard, the cost is high, but we will finish this job. For every ship the enemy sinks, our shipyards back home have already launched 10 more. For every plane he sends on a one-way mission, our factories are rolling out 100 new fighters, 1,000 new bombers. The industrial might of a free world is a torrent that he cannot stop. He cannot even slow. Our fleets now sail where they please. Our air forces command the skies, sweeping away the last remnants of his power. The islands we've taken, hard fought and paid for in American courage, are now the unsinkable airfields, pointing like a dagger at his homeland. There is only the unconditional surrender of a defeated foe.
Observe the pride of the Pacific Fleet returning to its nest. They are gray Leviathans, our battleships and cruisers. It is a portrait of confidence, a fleet at rest, utterly unaware of the storm gathering just beyond the horizon. Then came December 7th, 1941, a date burned into the soul of the free world. We are looking back at the moment the Pacific turned into an inferno. What you are about to see is not merely a record of destruction. It is a testament to a terrifying leap in aerial engineering. The film reels captured on that Sunday morning show us a fleet caught unawares, but hidden within the smoke and the strafing runs is a story of mechanical ingenuity that caught the Allies completely off guard. To understand the devastation you see in this footage, you must look past the flames and focus on the machines that delivered them. The Imperial Japanese Navy brought a technological marvel that our intelligence bureaus claimed was impossible. Consider the torpedo bombers, the Nakajima B-5N2s. The Allies call them Kates. By the standards of 1941, they were slow and lightly armored. Yet they achieved something our own experts deemed physically impossible. Pearl Harbor is a shallow port, with an average depth of only 45 feet. A standard aerial torpedo, when dropped, plunges nearly 90 feet before correcting its depth. By all laws of physics, the Japanese torpedoes should have buried themselves harmlessly in the mud of the harbor floor. They did not. Hidden on the tail of every Type 91 torpedo was a secret innovation, a simple, wooden extension fin. These wooden stabilizers were designed to break away upon impact with the water. They changed the aerodynamics of the drop, allowing the weapon to enter the water flat, preventing the deep dive. Combined with a sophisticated anti-roll gyroscope, these wooden fins turned the shallow waters of secret kept until the first explosions rocked the hull of the Oklahoma. Then there was the fighter cover, the Mitsubishi A6M, the Zero. They dominated the airspace. For years, reports dismissed Japanese aviation as inferior copies of Western designs. The Zero proved them wrong in the most violent way possible. Its designer, Jiro Horikoshi, utilized a top-secret alloy created by Sumitomo Metal, known as Extra Super Duralumin. This material was lighter and stronger than anything used in American factories. However, this performance came at a grim price. To achieve its legendary range and agility, the Zero sacrificed everything else. There is no armor plating protecting the pilot. The fuel tanks are not self-sealing. It was a machine built entirely for offense. A glass cannon that can outmaneuver anything in the sky but bursts into flame with a single well-placed hit. It is a philosophy of war built into metal. Speed and aggression over survival. Consider, too, the fate of the airfields surrounding the harbor. The defense of the island relied upon our pursuit squadrons, yet they were caught fast on the ground. This was not due to simple negligence, but a tragic irony born of caution. The command feared sabotage from spies within the local population far more than an air attack from the sea. To protect the machines from a terrestrial enemy, they were ordered to be parked wingtip to wingtip in tight rows, rather than dispersed in safety. Furthermore, the guns were cold. To prevent accidents and sabotage, ammunition was largely locked away in separate bunkers. Instead of securing the Air Force, these precautions created a seamless target for the raiders. A single strafing run, a single spark, turned one machine into a torch that ignited the next, and then the next. The conflagration consumed the squadrons before the pilots could even reach their cockpits. The very measures meant to preserve our air power ultimately ensured its destruction. The footage you are watching captures the result of these converging factors. A secret torpedo technology, a fighter plane built of a new super alloy, and a defensive mindset that was prepared for the wrong war. While the smoke still billowed, a different kind of fire was ignited in the hearts of the American people. The enemy believed that such a catastrophic blow would paralyze the nation's will to fight. They were gravely mistaken. In the aftermath of the chaos, amidst the wreckage, the salvage crews began their work immediately. Men dove into oil-slicked waters to cut into capsized hulls. Welders worked around the clock. Remarkable as it seems, the vast majority of the ships sunk or damaged on this day were raised, repaired, and sent back out to hunt the very Navy that struck them. This footage documents a day of infamy, yes, but it also marks the moment a sleeping giant awoke, filled with a terrible resolve.
Here's an unfortunate accident, two of our planes.
You are watching extraordinary World War II color footage filmed or edited by Jack Lieb before and during D-Day. This is unlike anything you've seen. Using his personal 16mm Kodachrome camera, Lieb gives us a unique, intimate perspective. His journey takes the viewer from the D-Day preparations in England through the liberation of Paris and eventually into Germany. Along the way, he documented the lives of ordinary people in France, interspersed with glimpses of celebrities like Ernest Hemingway.
Here we see some pictures made by automatic cameras that were installed in the fighter planes, because when a pilot reported that he had shot down an enemy plane, he wasn't given credit unless his pictures proved that the plane was shot down. And these automatic cameras would operate in conjunction with his machine guns. And if you look closely, you'll see the pilot jump out of the plane in the shot. But you notice, too, that a lot of these planes are still carrying the extra fuel tanks that they were carrying underneath the wing. And whenever the bullets hit that tank, the plane would explode, as you will see here. But when you saw shots like this, you know that the pilot never got back. Of course, these heavy guns caused terrific concussion, and it was difficult to hold a handheld camera that long. One of the first things that the Americans did was to build an airstrip in the St. Mary Glees area, not far from the coast. And they used a strip that was supported by metal wire to keep the planes from sinking into the ground. And they were using it also as a place to take off from with 500-pound bombs under each wing. But the strip was so rough that frequently the bombs would break loose, and even though they were armed, they had to be disarmed and taken off the runway. These are P-47s that they were using here, and there's one carrying a bomb under each wing to attack the enemy deep in behind the lines. You notice these two planes taking off at once, raising considerable dust, but managing to get off a very short runway.
Marauders of the 9th Air Force fly over the invasion surface fleet, pass the Ninth Air Force, fly over the invasion surface fleet, pass the beachhead to strike at enemy concentrations. During invasion activities, the B-26s bomb from lower altitudes to increase accuracy. The first Allied field hospital set up in France, and fields littered with abandoned German equipment are passed on the way to the target. The Marauders dropped their bombs from 2,000 feet at railroad tracks and scored direct hits. The vicinity of Caen, one of the main enemy strongholds, is heavily bombed. Marauders attack the woods to the rear of the town, which conceal concentrations of enemy troops, vehicles, and tanks. Early in the morning, Marauders bomb a wooded area south of Caen, which German tanks entered during the night for refueling. Nearby Allied troops were pulled back before the bombing. Target, the railway bridge over the Noiro River. Bombing altitude, again, 2,000 feet. En route back to base, the Marauders pass over the Bay of the Seine, crowded with another invasion fleet.
During the closing months of the war in the Pacific, Japanese forces, hoping to stave off defeat, began using large numbers of kamikaze airplanes for suicide attacks on Allied warships and, to a lesser extent, against invasion forces already ashore and against B-29s on bombing missions over the home islands. The first kamikazes were encountered during the Battle for the Philippines in October 1944. Initially, it appeared as if the Japanese planes were hitting Allied warships by accident, after their pilots had been killed by anti-aircraft fire. However, as more and more ships were struck, it became clear that the enemy pilots were intentionally crashing their planes into the targets, even though it meant certain death for them. When the Allies landed on Okinawa in April 1945, they gathered together the greatest invasion fleet ever to operate in the Pacific, 1,300 ships of all kinds and sizes, carrying 100,000 soldiers and Marines and additional thousands of Navy crew members. The most inviting of these ships to the kamikaze pilot were the aircraft carriers with their flat tops and enormous supplies of highly flammable gasoline. If these could be put out of action, they would be unable to launch their hundreds of airplanes for many months to come. As a rule, kamikaze planes comprised only part of an attacking force. Some of the Japanese planes simply dropped their bombs and returned home, while others engaged Allied fighters which had been sent aloft to defend their ships from attack. Amid the confusion of aerial battle, the kamikazes attempted to sneak through the defending fighters, select a profitable target, and dive or fly into it. At first, kamikazes appeared only during the day, attacking like a swarm of angry bees. Before long, they started showing up at night whenever a target could be spotted in the darkness. Regardless of when they appeared, however, they were met with devastating anti-aircraft fire, and many were shot down before they could reach their intended target. Though strange by Western standards, the Japanese flyer considered it an honor to die as a kamikaze. Almost from the day of his birth, he had been taught, both at home and at school, that the only alternative to victory was death. Surrender was so disgraceful that it was unthinkable. Before taking off on his last mission, a kamikaze pilot was honored with a ritual during which he received a ceremonial belt. He then drank final toasts to the Emperor, to the life of the Japanese Empire, and to a glorious death. It was his fervent desire to die in such a manner as to emulate the true meaning of the word kamikaze, divine wind, which according to Japanese legend was a providential typhoon sent by the sun goddess in the 13th century to wreck the huge invasion fleet of the Mongol conqueror Kublai Khan. In the final tally, an estimated 4,000 Japanese pilots sacrificed their lives as kamikazes. However, they sank 34 American ships and damaged 288 others, including 36 aircraft carriers, 15 battleships, and 87 destroyers. Kamikazes created so much havoc that shipyards in California were filled with warships sent home for repairs, while others were sent as far as the East Coast. In fact, the kamikaze threat became so great that between April 17th and May 11th, 1945, 75% of the B-29 missions flown against Japan were diverted from their strategic mission to knocking out the kamikaze air bases. After the war had ended, the United States Strategic Bombing Survey concluded the kamikazes had wrought such damage that if the attacks had been sustained in greater power and concentration, they might have been able to cause us to withdraw or revise our strategic plans. Fortunately, kamikazes shot down by the U.S. Navy during attacks at sea and destroyed on the ground by Air Force B-29s during bombing raids depleted Japan's airplane inventory faster than the losses could be replaced.
War is the mother of improvisation, and nowhere is this more evident than in the Pacific War. Here, the rule book regarding Army aviation has been thrown overboard. We are witnessing a peculiar marriage of convenience between the Army Air Forces and the Navy. These P-47 Thunderbolts, aircraft designed for the crushed rock runways of Europe, are now perched precariously on the heaving flight decks of escort carriers. Lacking tail hooks for landing, they are strictly a one-way ticket. The catapult fires them into the humid air, sending the heavy fighters toward the captured airfields of Saipan. But the innovation does not stop at the launch. The 318th Fighter Group is rewriting the manual on close air support. They are fitting these metal giants with 5-inch high-velocity aircraft rockets, turning a fighter plane into flying artillery. Furthermore, they are testing a fearsome new incendiary mixture known as napalm. Housed in drop tanks usually reserved for fuel, this jellied gasoline transforms the P-47 from a precision strafer into an instrument of total area denial. In the rugged terrain of the Marianas, where the enemy digs deep into caves and foliage, the Thunderbolt has evolved. It is no longer just a dogfighter. It is a sledgehammer swinging in the Pacific theater. The Republic P-47 Thunderbolt is a study in excess, a 7-ton beast that defies the very concept of a lightweight fighter. To the men who wrench on her, she is the Jug, a moniker derived from her resemblance to a milk jug, though her performance suggests the sheer force of a juggernaut. What makes this fuselage so massive is not merely armor, but a complex respiratory system hidden beneath the skin. The mighty Pratt Whitney Double Wasp engine up front demands a massive turbo supercharger, which the designers placed all the way in the tail.
In the desperate logistics of a world at war, the Luftwaffe turned to a solution that defied convention, the Messerschmitt Me 323 Gigant. Born from the earlier Me 321 heavy glider, intended for the invasion of Britain, this machine was transformed into the largest land-based transport aircraft of the conflict. When the Germans realized they lacked enough powerful aircraft to tow the massive gliders, they improvised. bolting 6 French Gnome-Rhone radial engines onto the wings to create a self-launching behemoth. It was a marvel of non-strategic engineering. To save precious aluminum for fighter planes, the Gigant was constructed almost entirely of a steel tube framework covered in fabric and plywood. Despite its fragile skin, it was designed to haul the heaviest implements of war. Its revolutionary clamshell nose doors allowed trucks, half-tracks, and even light tanks to drive directly into its cavernous hold, a feature that would influence military transport design for decades to come. But lifting such immense payloads came at a cost. The aircraft was notoriously slow and vulnerable, often requiring liquid fuel rockets strapped to the wings just to get off the ground. With a multi-wheel landing gear system designed to handle rough, unprepared fields, it became the workhorse of the Mediterranean and the Eastern Front. Yet to the Allied fighters that hunted them, these slow-moving giants were little more than flying targets, a testament to the crumbling industrial might of the Reich.
Let's take a look at how the magnificent Northrop XB-35 flying wing was made. The first flying wing bomber, and the largest flying wing ever constructed, is approximately 75% complete at the Northrop plant, Hawthorne, California. The wingspan of the XB-35 is 172 feet. At the center section, the wing chord is approximately 37 feet, tapering to 9.5-foot wingtips. Design gross weight is 155,000 pounds. Maximum allowable gross weight is 208,000 pounds. The airfoil is an NACA laminar flow section. Internal structure is conventional riveted construction with variations as required by the aircraft's unusual configuration. Because of the airplane's huge size, transits mounted on permanent leveling pads on the jigs are used to accurately locate major structural members. 75S high-strength aluminum alloy is used in main structural members to reduce weight. There are 8 bomb bays capable of housing a total maximum bomb load of 51,000 pounds. Bomb bay number 4 may be entered from the crew compartment and serves as an emergency exit. Thickness of this flying wing at the center section is 7 feet, providing ample room for the crew to walk upright. Oil coolers, intercoolers, turbo superchargers, and heat exchangers are housed in the plenum chambers forward of the front spar. Formation of ice on the wing is prevented by heated air passing through ducts in the leading edge. The largest free-blown plexiglass canopy ever constructed will cover this opening and provide visibility for the pilot and forward gunner. The workman is entering through the bombardier sighting panel. Total built-in fuel capacity is 10,000 gallons, more than the standard railroad tank car. An additional tank car of fuel can be carried in droppable bomb bay tanks. This tremendous fuel capacity gives the XB-35 a maximum estimated ferry range of 12,000 miles. Landing gear is conventional tricycle arrangement, with the nose gear retracting sideways into the wheel well. The plane is powered by 4 Pratt Whitney Wasp major engines. These R4360 engines are completely housed within the wing and are capable of developing a total of 12,000 takeoff horsepower. 15-foot, dual, contra-rotating pusher props will drive the XB-35 at an estimated 390 miles per hour at 35,000 feet. It is estimated that the XB-35 will fly by the end of 1945.
Helping to sink 19 enemy vessels. Some months later, a B-24 on reconnaissance located a column of Japanese warships moving through the Bismarck Sea toward New Guinea. This was the ship's big chance. Every available plane was sent into action. For 3 days, 162 American and Australian planes bombed and strafed the Jap fleet. Many of our flyers came in at mast-high altitude to skip bomb the enemy. At a cost of only 6 of our planes and 13 of our men, the convoy was smashed and an entire division of troops wiped out. This marked the limit of Japanese expansion. The 5th proceeded to take the offensive against the enemy's formidable system of interlocking bases. Japanese pressure had been concentrated on Port Moresby. We countered swiftly. Our troop carrier command flew 15,000 men across the Owen Stanley Range in one air movement. Then kept them supplied with more than 2 million pounds of food and equipment a week. Guns were moved in, and the wounded evacuated on the return trips. Following the Spearhead came the engineers. Sometimes they had equipment, sometimes they improvised. Whatever their tools, they built airstrips out of the jungle in record time.
American-made bombs at an American airdrome somewhere in England, loading up for a raid on Nazi-held France. American flying fortresses, manned by Americans, serving notice on Adolf Hitler that they are here to fight. Operating as a complete striking force, the Americans bring their own pilots and combat crews, mechanics and groundmen, calmly, efficiently checking every part of the giant ships. 3,000 miles from home, and the Yankee sense of humor still with them. Every machine gun and cannon is tested before the flight. Men from across the sea who have come to aid their brothers in arms, those gallant flyers of the RAF. It's the hour for which they've been waiting. Well-loaded scout cars, the familiar American Jeep, haul them to the points of takeoff. Brigadier General Eaker in personal command goes with his men. Now, one by one, the huge motors roar. Many of the men have been over before with the RAF. Now they're on their own. From the general's plane, ships of the squadron are sighted as they cross the channel. Daring raids by daylight, and the objective, Nazi munitions plants in occupied France. Sighting their first target, the bombardiers take over. Bomb bay doors swing wide, and all-American TNT, delivered by all-American ships and crews, finds its mark. Gunners have work to do when the fortresses are attacked by enemy flights, but they battle their way through, and every ship returns safely to port. The general hurries to headquarters to report the latest mission a success. And again the crews assemble, this time to give details of their part in the raid. Grim, determined men, helping to smash the Nazi hold upon Europe's enslaved people.
Deep inside the echoing halls of the Boeing plant, a mechanical leviathan awakens.
the air smells of hot rivets, machine oil, and the quiet determination of a workforce mobilized for a looming storm. Hundreds of thousands of individual parts, machined to exacting tolerances, are brought together by hands that once built cars and radios. The B-17 Flying Fortress begins its life here, amid the relentless rhythm of the heavy assembly line. Notice the massive radial engines being carefully hoisted into place. Each of those power plants requires a staggering amount of precision engineering. The Wright Cyclones are complex beasts, demanding intricate oiling systems and exhaust-driven superchargers that will eventually allow these bombers to breathe in the freezing, thin air of the stratosphere. It takes a highly specialized touch to mount these 1,200 horsepower engines securely to the immense aluminum wings. The men and women moving these metal giants are pioneers of mass production, inventing new assembly techniques on the fly. Consider the sheer volume of fasteners alone. Securing the skin to the skeletal frame requires driving hundreds of thousands of rivets. It is an ear-splitting, bone-rattling process demanding perfect synchronization between two workers. The logistics of mating those massive wings to the central fuselage represents a towering triumph of industrial design. By the time the massive rear doors roll open, a machine of unprecedented destructive power stands ready. Air Force officers cast exacting eyes over the polished aluminum, checking the freshly installed 50 caliber machine guns. These initial armaments are meticulously inspected by civilian defense workers to ensure flawless operation under extreme stress. Deep within the belly of the beast, technicians carefully hoist inert training ordnance into the sprawling bomb bays, testing the intricate mechanical release systems. Pushing these early production models out onto the tarmac requires raw muscle and sweat. Before the widespread use of heavy mechanized tow tractors, human backs strain against the 30,000-pound weight. The early models rolling out here laid the foundation for daylight precision bombing. The workers watching them go know they have birthed a towering achievement of human ingenuity, meeting the dire demands of a troubled decade with steel and unmatched resolve.
Bombing from 2,000 feet, the B-26s are rocked by the concussion. Mustang fighters of the 9th Air Force go out on continual sweeps over France, against the Luftwaffe in the air, and against the enemy's aerodromes and transportation facilities on the ground. Flying in formation, they head out across the channel. Gun-sight aiming point cameras record action near the invasion coast. Flying through heavy flak, a fighter downs a twin-engined enemy. This German drops his flaming belly tank. And the pilot bails out. Another enemy fighter destroyed. Enemy aerodromes are strafed. This is one of the reasons for the relative lack of activity on the part of the Luftwaffe against our beachhead. A barrage balloon is quickly set up on the landing strip, which was completed in record time. One of the first transport planes lands on the new strip only 2 days after D-Day to evacuate wounded. On the 12th of June, D-Day +6, cargo planes approached the coast of France on what has become a routine supply dropping mission. The C-47s released their parapacks over positions held by our advanced ground troops. Red and yellow parachutes eased down bundles of supplies near the crash-landed gliders of our airborne infantry. Focke-Wulf 190 caught while taking off. Railroad installations are bombed and stopped, crippling transportation facilities.
Look skyward today, and you might see the silver flash of a North American Mustang, a bird that wasn't even a glimmer in an engineer's eye when the fires of war first ignited in Europe. You see, the British asked North American aviation for more P-40s, but Dutch Kindleberger and his team of visionaries had a bolder idea. They promised a brand new fighter from scratch, and they did it in a staggering 102 days. That is the American spirit in motion. While many folks think the Mustang's secret was merely that magnificent British Merlin engine, the real magic started with the wing. The sleek silhouette utilizes a laminar flow design, a concept that was almost purely theoretical at the time. By moving the thickest part of the wing further back, our engineers slashed drag and allowed this thoroughbred to slice through the air with unprecedented efficiency. There are secrets hidden behind the P-51's polished aluminum. While most fighters of the era struggled to reach the deep interior of Germany, one of the Mustang's secret weapons was its fuel capacity. By tucking a massive tank right behind the pilot's seat, they gave this bird the legs to fly from England to Berlin and back again. It turned the tide of the daylight bombing campaign almost overnight. And did you know about the radiator? It isn't just a cooling unit, it's a stroke of genius. By utilizing the Meredith effect, the heat from the engine actually generates a small amount of jet thrust as it exits the duct. It's a fighter that helps push itself forward. In the factories of Inglewood and Dallas, these machines come together with the precision of a fine Swiss watch, but the ruggedness of a Midwestern tractor. From the K-14 computing gun sight that helps our boys lead their targets with mathematical certainty, to the teardrop canopy providing a full 360-degree view of the horizon, every rivet is a nail in the coffin of tyranny. They built more than a plane. They created a long-range escort that finally took the fight all the way to the heart of the enemy.
The Empire of Japan has not lost a naval battle in 300 years. The Japanese fleet will be at Midway numerically superior in all classes of ships, but their intelligence is faulty. The Japanese believe the main strength of the American fleet is still in Hawaii or in Australian waters. The Japanese believe their attack on Midway will be a complete surprise. Hidden behind a bad weather front, the Japanese fleet moves to Midway. Midway is prepared as Pearl Harbor was not. Although the Marines are outnumbered, the island is on the alert. The Air Force sends as many B-17s to Midway as the island can handle. A force of 17 heavy bombers is gathered on the island. Within a few hours after the planes arrive, they are ordered into the air to make long-range searches. Although we know the Japanese are coming, we do not know exactly where they are. Early in the morning of June 4th, 1942, the decisive contact is made. Enemy carriers are reported. Enemy planes are seen inbound toward Midway. Admiral Nomura knows he must launch a stronger attack against the island, but if he is to strengthen his attack force, he must use his reserves. The Japanese reserve planes are armed with torpedoes. If they are to attack Midway, bombs must be substituted for torpedoes. The Japanese admiral does not know that the American carriers are in the vicinity. He orders the change from torpedoes to bombs. While the change in weapons is being made, the Japanese carriers are vulnerable to air attack. This is the turning point of the Pacific War.
Toward the end of World War II, a new Nazi weapon was deployed. It was a tiny, tailless bat, screaming vertically into the heavens on a pillar of white smoke. Intelligence identified it as the Messerschmitt Me 163, a machine that abandoned the internal combustion engine entirely in favor of raw rocket propulsion. This was the work of Dr. Alexander Lippisch, a radical departure from the graceful fighters of the past. But the speed came at a terrible price. The engine drank a volatile cocktail of chemicals. These liquids were so unstable that they exploded on contact with organic matter. Here is what legendary test pilot Eric Winkle Brown thought of this wonder weapon of desperation.
The 163, in my opinion, at the end of the day, was a tool of desperation. It was not, I don't think, operationally effective. Its operational record is this. In its entire operational time, it killed 16 Allied aircraft for the loss of 10 of its own. But the other side of the coin was they lost over 40 with operational accidents due to the high volatility of the fuels used, which were extremely dangerous. It had, again, innovation was the name of the game here. You had swept wings on this. It was semi-tailless. It had a vertical tail, but no horizontal tail. It had elevons for both longitudinal and lateral control. It had a rocket motor, which was unique in this sense. Rockets have been tried in aircraft for years, both solid fuel and liquid fuel, but all had the same problem. When you lit the touch paper, you sit back and there's nothing you can do about it till it burns itself out. Here was a rocket produced which was throttleable. It could be throttled to either idle, cruise, or full power. It also had a skid landing, but the main problem with it was the fuels were incredibly volatile. Its main fuel was concentrated hydrogen peroxide. Now, I know nothing more explosive, with perhaps the exception of nitroglycerin, than concentrated hydrogen peroxide. And you had, under full power, 120 seconds of flight.
Strike without warning. Destroy his inadequate air force on the ground. Blast those who escape out of the air. Strike again with your bombers, wave after wave, again and again. Strike at the railroads, for then the victim cannot mobilize. It cannot move men and supplies. Its armies are isolated. Strike on the sea.
of the enemy interceptors are blasted out of the battle zone. Despite opposition, the bombers push on deeper into enemy territory, their progress mapped by vapor trails. In formation, the bombers can lay down a deadly pattern of protective fire. Nevertheless, the enemy fighter attacks, plus the anti-aircraft barrage, take their toll. Our planes begin to show damage. Some drop behind. Above the battle, the enemy commander locates the stragglers. His fighters close into the kill. This is called the big lead. Look at the battle from the German angle, through German cameras, and see why. But the main body of our formation closes in on the target. The enemy has never succeeded in making an American mission turn back before completing its task. Despite the threat of sudden, violent death, our flyers stick to their jobs until the bombs are away. Until the target is destroyed.
The skies over Europe in the early 1940s were a proving ground for aerial supremacy, demanding constant innovation from aircraft designers. Amidst the roaring engines and anti-aircraft fire, a new silhouette emerged from the German hangars, bearing the designation Messerschmitt Me 410 Hornisse, or Hornet. Evolving from the deeply flawed Me 210, which had plagued the Luftwaffe with aerodynamic instability, the 410 was an urgent attempt at redemption. Engineers lengthened the fuselage and installed more powerful Daimler-Benz 603A engines, transforming a dangerous liability into a remarkably capable heavy fighter and fast bomber. A striking feature of the Hornet was its heavily glazed canopy, placing the pilot and rear gunner in a tandem configuration that offered exceptional visibility. The rear gunner controlled an innovative barbette system, aiming remote-controlled machine guns mounted on the sides of the fuselage. This technological leap kept the gunner protected while providing defensive fire against Allied interceptors. Beneath the nose, the aircraft hid a versatile weapons bay. Originally intended to carry up to 2,000 pounds of bombs, this compartment could be adapted to house devastating 50mm cannons, turning the Hornet into a lethal bomber-destroyer, capable of engaging American heavy bombers from well beyond the range of their defensive guns. The Me 410 entered service as the tide of the war was beginning to turn against Germany. It found itself utilized in a multitude of roles, from night fighting to maritime strike and aerial reconnaissance. Its blistering top speed of nearly 400 miles per hour made it a difficult target for early Allied fighters. Yet the aircraft was fighting a losing battle of attrition. The factories producing them were relentlessly targeted by Allied bombing campaigns, and the skies teemed with increasingly superior enemy fighters like the P-51 Mustang. Despite its sophisticated engineering and terrifying combat potential, the Hornet was overwhelmed by the sheer numbers of the Allied war machine. It remains a fascinating testament to wartime engineering, a machine of desperate ingenuity, built in the twilight of an empire.
By 1944, the fight for civil rights and the fight for global freedom intersected violently in the skies above Italy and Germany. Men who had been forced to sue their own government just for the right to serve as aviation cadets were now strapping into high-performance fighters to defend it. The Tuskegee Airmen fought a grueling two-front war, overcoming systemic racism at home before ever engaging the Luftwaffe's finest interceptors. From harrowing strafing runs over the beaches of Anzio to massive bomber escort missions targeting Berlin, they demonstrated unmatched tactical discipline. During their tenure as escort fighters, they gained immense respect from vulnerable bomber crews who began specifically requesting the Red Tails for protection. Their flawless dedication helped dismantle the Axis war machine and laid the undeniable groundwork for the total desegregation of the military.
On the other side of the world, other air forces are spearheading the attack on Tokyo. In December 1943, Cape Gloucester, a projection off the western end of New Britain, was bombed, strafed, and softened up prior to an amphibious landing by the ground forces. In the 2 weeks preceding the H hour of this D-Day, B-25s flew 511 of the 1,215 sorties against this objective. From December 10th through December 26th, D-Day, more than 3,000 tons of bombs were dropped on gun positions, coastal installations, beach and bivouac areas, and thousands of rounds of ammunition and 75mm shells were poured into Japanese positions.
Today, the huge missions over Europe must be carefully and elaborately planned. Our flyers can expect any trip to develop into a major air battle. At a dozen scattered airfields, the bombers are assembled and moved to the starting lines. Takeoff time. And the imposing forts and liberators thunder into the gray English dawn. They take off on split-second schedule. But war in the air is so swift but a few moments' error may mean a missed rendezvous. At the fighter fields, Thunderbolts are ready. They set out to meet the bombers, followed by twin-engine Lightnings. The two groups make rendezvous over the English Channel, and with the fighters patrolling the skies around the bomber formation, the Air Armada moves into enemy territory. News of the approaching air invasion is flashed through the German warning system. Coastal anti-aircraft batteries fill the skies with high explosives. Alarm sirens wail over the German fighter fields and pilots sprint to their planes. In a few minutes, deadly Focke-Wulfs and Me-109s are on their way to challenge our men and planes. Our fighters peel off to meet the enemy threat, and the battle is on.
With Okinawa in our hands, we could control the China coast, send swarms of planes to smother Japan. We were reaching for the throat of an empire. The risk must be taken. On the island of Okinawa, 5,000 miles from San Francisco, the earth shook from a fearful pounding by our ships and planes. To the south, our British allies were hurling their naval might at the bypassed fortress of Formosa. They were raking Sakashima with shell and bomb. England's greatest battleships and newest carriers were there, screening us on the south, paying off with pleasure an old debt to Nippon. On the northern flank, Admiral Mark A. Mitcher's tireless Task Force 58 stepped up its 2-week-old aerial assault on Kyushu and the enemy home islands. It was the 4th of July in reverse, on Japanese shipping, harbors, airfields, factories.
Above the brutal jungles of New Guinea, a unique breed of aviator fought a very different kind of war. Stripped of heavy armament to maximize speed and altitude, the F-5 Lightning was a custom-made machine designed for a solitary purpose: aerial reconnaissance. The men who flew them were often top-tier fighter pilots, reassigned to operate the K-17 and K-18 cameras instead of firing machine guns. Operating without the comforting protection of a squadron, these lone wolves ventured deep behind enemy lines. They faced intense anti-aircraft fire and aggressive enemy fighter patrols, relying entirely on their piloting skills to survive. The intelligence they gathered dictated the movement of entire armies, yet they bore the dismissive nickname Photo Joe. We are uncovering the unglamorous, high-stakes reality of the unarmed heroes who supplied 90% of Allied air intelligence and quietly turned the tide of the global conflict.
After the airfields, next on our shopping list came control towers, fuel tanks, power stations, factories. I liked the airfields better. Later, we'd go after transportation targets like trains. The 505 from Osaka was sometimes a little late. When you only have 125 gallons left, you know it's time to head back to Iwo. On the way out, if we had any ammo left, naturally we'd leave our calling cards anywhere we could.
From the silver screen to the silver wings of victory, a new force has awakened across the nation. The call has gone out, not just for machines, but for the men who will master them. And leading the charge is a face known to every moviegoer in America, Lieutenant James Stewart.
Hello. Gee, it looks like I'm back in the movies again, doesn't it?
Trading the comfort of the studio lot for the cockpit of a heavy bomber, he stands before the camera to deliver the most vital performance of his career. This is the story of how a single film, Winning Your Wings, helped build the greatest air armada in history. We see the mighty flying fortress, not merely as a weapon of war, but as a symbol of our national resolve. It is a giant of the skies,
demanding a crew of 10 highly trained specialists working in perfect unison. Watch as the barriers to entry are swept away. The old requirements are gone. The Army Air Forces demands only courage, aptitude, and a steady hand. Through the lens of this documentary, we witness the transformation of raw recruits, clerks, mechanics, and students into the navigators, bombardiers, and pilots of tomorrow. The aircraft itself stands as a rugged testament to American production. It is a 4-engine Guardian designed to bring its boys home, capable of absorbing punishment and returning to fight another day. But even the strongest steel requires a guiding spirit. With Lieutenant Stewart pointing the way, thousands have answered the call, looking skyward to join the fight. This is the dawn of a new era in air power, where every man has a role, and every mission brings us one step closer to final victory.
Suddenly, overhead appear the carrier-based planes of the United States Pacific Fleet. Dive bombers penetrate the Japanese fighter screen, penetrate the Japanese anti-aircraft screen, and catch the enemy carriers. 5 minutes after the attack begins, 2 great Japanese carriers, Akagi and Soryu, lie broken in the water. 5 minutes after the attack begins, American naval aircraft assert their dominance over the surface ships. The orthodox naval doctrine of a battleship war is destroyed by air power. The Imperial fleet gathers for one last effort. On the enemy carrier, hear you, are the remnants of Japan's first-line naval pilots. They are told, at all costs and with all sacrifice, attack the American carriers. Meanwhile, the American planes are returning. 2 American torpedo squadrons have been wiped out, and the survivors, low on gasoline, have difficulty finding their ships. The Japanese planes are only a few miles behind the Americans.
It was desired to test and compare local control turrets with the standard remote fire control system used in the B-29. 2 Martin turrets with computer sights and 2 Sperry Ball turrets replaced the remote control guns. Most interesting armament installation is 2 Emerson barbettes installed in the nose. The barbettes are controlled by a GE pedestal sight similar to that used for remote control in the B-29. Satisfactory performance of remotely controlled guns has reduced interest in locally controlled turrets for the B-29.
The Pacific Ocean is a battlefield of infinite distance. For years, the enemy believed these waters were a shield, a vast moat protecting their homeland from the fires of war. They were wrong. We are witnessing the culmination of the greatest logistical achievement in history, the conquest of the air over Japan. The instrument of this victory is the Boeing B-29 Superfortress, a machine so advanced it renders all previous bombers obsolete. Consider the engineering marvel sitting on the tarmac of Guam, Saipan, and Tinian. This is the first bomber to offer a fully pressurized cabin, allowing crews to operate at 30,000 feet in shirt-sleeve comfort, free from the cumbersome flight suits and oxygen masks required in Europe. Defensive armament has leaped forward as well. Gone are the days of gunners manually wrestling heavy machine guns against the slipstream. The Super Fortress utilizes a revolutionary General Electric central fire control system. Gunners sit in sighting blisters using analog computers to remotely direct 5 turrets, tracking enemy fighters with mathematical precision. It is the most complex aircraft ever mass-produced, a $3 billion gamble that paid off. But the bomber is only half the story. To strike the heart of the enemy, these giants must fly 1,500 miles over open water, face the flak and fighters of the mainland, and return. They do not go alone. From the sulfurous rock of Iwo Jima rise the Little Friends, the North American P-51 Mustangs. These are not the short-range interceptors of the early war. Equipped with drop tanks and the legendary Merlin engine, they fly the longest fighter escort missions ever attempted, a round trip of 7 hours or more. It is a grueling test of pilot endurance, sitting in a cramped cockpit for the duration of a transatlantic flight, only to engage in dogfights over Tokyo. The film you are about to see, The Last Bomb, captures this relentless offensive in vivid Technicolor. It documents the sheer scale of the 21st Bomber Command under General Curtis LeMay. You will see the coordination of hundreds of aircraft, the precision of the incendiary raids that dismantled the enemy's war industry, and the final, terrible blow that brought an empire to its knees. This is the reality of modern air power, methodical, overwhelming, and unstoppable.
Every aircraft has a story that deserves to be told. Don't let these legends fade into the past. Like this video and subscribe to our channel and help us keep aviation history alive.
The year is 1943. High above the Atlantic, a new breed of sea power takes wing. These are not merely machines. They are the heavy cavalry of a new age, venturing toward a rendezvous that will shift the tides of the Pacific. We are looking at the Grumman F6F Hellcat, a fighter forged specifically to answer the Japanese Zero. Unlike its predecessors, it carries the massive Pratt Whitney Double Wasp engine, 2,000 horsepower, encased in armor plating, designed not just to fly, but to take punishment and return home. Observe the flight deck, a floating airstrip pitching in the open sea.